Okay, so this is the second part of our community chat. I also wanted to pull out the fact that Taurus is a very stable, sensual, and almost obstinate earth sign. And Uranus just went into Taurus this week. And within 2 days, we had a filament come off of our sun on March 8th. And some of us in the group were really feeling that day. It was like almost like a life and death feeling. I felt like, are we going to survive this? And then Grant posted that a filament had come off the sun and it was earth directed. And we know that according to the calculations, the filament's going to pass just by the side of the earth. But I do want to say to our viewers that because we're going through this Oort cloud and we're in this processional season and cycle right now, our sun is continually blowing a solar wind that feels like radioactivity. And so I have been having symptoms of really feeling like I am nuclear, like I am radioactive. And so with Uranus now re-entering Taurus as it did last year, we could see a certain amount of earth changes and our sun heating up again and giving us some filaments. So anyone who wants to talk about that also, or staying with what Holly was talking about, which was so profound, about Prometheus and the fire, and what is that fire that was given to humanity, and the idea of like the weaponized woman, because this is a really profound part of it also is, I guess in my own experience with my partners and my partner Claude, I feel like a fully weaponized woman. Like when I was shoveling the deck today and I had my shovel, he was looking at me. Like, do I dare approach you? Let me make sure your face looks calm. Okay, so let's see where we go with that introduction. Well, who wants to speak about things?
I'll just quick say I also had a very Athena moment. I can't remember when it was, but I was like, I just feel like Athena with a spear today, and anything in my way is like, do you remember that?
That was Wednesday.
And you were kind of looking at me like, oh, geez. And I was like, I feel great. So, yeah, and I have a stellium of planets in Taurus, too. So I remember the last time Uranus went into Taurus just for a little bit, I felt very energized. And it felt more positive for me. So.
She's good with the snow shovel too. We found out.
I can shovel snow, but I do feel that volcanic energy. You know, I think it comes too from the women in my family. I have very strong, smart, powerful women in my family, and I can have that righteous rage, or I can just lose it in a second. And so I do have to like tend it so I'm not burning up or like, oh my gosh, I just totally bit your head off. Sorry.
I can relate to that. I have that in my lineage as well. Definitely have that ability to spark it fast and furiously. A lot of fire in my chart, so I can relate completely to that. And anytime Uranus is involved, similar. You know, I have a lot of Uranian energy in my chart, so you know, it's quick, it's fast, I process fast. I'm, you know, usually like, why is it taking everybody so long? Catch up, you know, come on. Yeah. And so, you know, that fire tends to feed that a little bit. And I have to, like you said, tend it in order to make sure that I'm not, you know, giving people permission to have their own experience and their own timing. And a lot with my own partner, it's been that way. You know, he has a Cancer ascendant, and therefore the processing is completely different. And so just allowing him, even if I'm feeling what he's feeling before he knows he's feeling it, I have to like, I have to just go, okay, I'm like, walk away and I'll come back in, you know, half an hour and we can have the conversation. And just really, you know, respecting that, you know, there's a part where you have this knowingness and you have, embodied certain parts, but the people around you are still figuring out those pieces. And, you know, I wouldn't have wanted that as my experience, people pushing me along.
Right.
So I try to be really mindful of that, especially right now, because as Lolita said in the beginning, the silence is racing, you know, like there is that sense of like trying to get something there. But going back to what Holly was saying about Pandora's box, I sort of have, when I was feeling into it this morning and Lolita was talking about, you know, that coming into our charts, I kind of feel it differently. And I am not a mythology expert at all. The archetypes I'm familiar with, but I don't necessarily know the whole history. So Lolita, if this makes sense or there's anything you want to add, feel free to jump in. I feel that this was the changing of the guard between the matriarchal and the patriarchal. And when she was created and given to us on Earth, that they realized that, you know, the beauty and the gift of what she was, and from a matriarchal perspective and the power that she held, at some point that became a threat to the patriarchal society because it was coming in behind. And they turned all of what she was holding in her jar, really not her box, but her jar, into something negative, when in reality, initially it was something very beautiful. And what was in that jar was all beauty, but they turned it into sort of negative feelings and things that would be unleashed in the world. And so, you know, and then the matriarchal archetypes went into the underworld. And so, you know, now when we talk about releasing Pandora's box, we're talking about releasing feminine energy, and everyone's afraid of that because it's so pent up within us that the males are like, you know, always, not just males, it can be females as well, are always like, don't do that. Don't release what's up underneath there, because there's a genuine fear, but I don't feel that that fear was organically placed in the situation. So, you know, there's a lot of fear of having that energy coming out. What does that look like? We can't contain it anymore. It's very contained within the feminine. If we don't acknowledge it, then, you know, we're not opening that box. And so, you know, that's how I take it, is that feeling of like, this is the void, this is the unknown of the feminine, this is the intellectual curiosity. This is the part of the feminine that might have a little bit more mental space. It tends to be more written and verbal of like what they're afraid of, the knowledge that could come out, not necessarily all beauty. I think it's like all the different archetypes of the female in wholeness that they were trying to contain. That makes sense.
Yeah, so that's an incredible perspective on the review that we have been having in our astrology group about the feminine archetypes, and that they were held in one way and then messed with in such a way that the feminine was definitely taking a deep dive. And when I think of Pandora, what I see, and I almost took a picture today, is she's holding a jar and it's full of lightning bugs. Like they all have light. Do you know this image of Pandora? And they're all brilliant and beautiful light. But what happens when she opens it is very much what Laura's saying right now, is they become like nemesis, like, and the word nemesis, which Holly and I have also talked about, has also been like taken down into the gutter in terms of who Nemesis really was, who was keeping justice in the galaxy. So there's a lot of things that we're reviewing right now of allowing the feminine to release its beauty and allowing the masculine to release its Cancerian softness, because of course the North Node right now is in Cancer. So all of us, men and women included, are releasing that emotional safety, that nurturance. And I think Laura said that her partner has the Cancer ascendant, so the feeling into things, the intuitive, like Grant had started the session, like he was just sitting and feeling without linear thinking. What is my actual feeling in my body right now? And I just want to pull the thread forward. What I understand that the artificial construct that was placed was that woman could love without having intercourse, without making love. So woman can love without making love. And there was also an implant in man that man could have intercourse, meaning make love, without loving. And now let me just use a different word. So there was an interception in man and woman during this last age, where woman could love 100% but never have sex. She could love completely, 100%, and shut down completely her womb and her orgasmic response. In man, as far as I understand, man has an implant which he needs to be conscious of, where he can be having sex but have no love at all. And so that is also part of how this has come down, with man having certain archetypes and woman feeling so affronted by those archetypes of man being like the warmonger or the rapist. And from my sessions, women are still deeply enraged by this and deeply traumatized energetically from thousands and thousands of years of this. So how do we bridge that with man at this point? And I know some people in the group, like Lindsay, expressed that it's raw, it's vulnerable, it's painful, and yet you got to go into that. Hi, man. All right, so I'll stop there and go ahead.
I'm just laughing because that was perfect timing. He just came in to say goodbye. And you're like, Lindsay said she's so raw. He knows. That I just want to just like echo that. I totally relate to what you were saying about the implants, because I feel like I just became like conscious of it after having like 7 years of loving my husband but not having intimacy. You know what I mean? Like I finally was like, I want it all, and I became awake to it. And that's when I started healing, was when I found a partner that I could be my full self with. And I think by healing, I mean feeling like love so deeply, but then also like feeling that wound that like just goes so deep into the psyche. Like I'm sorry if I'm like over announcing this, but like I feel like it's the first time I really get it and really feel it. And it's really intense. I don't know. Sorry, I'm gonna stop babbling.
That's great, Lindsay. That's awesome. Yeah, that's exactly it.
Oh, actually, I do remember what I wanted to say. I also have been thinking a lot about how I can express my needs and my insecurity in a way that isn't like disciplining my lover. Like the whole the original, what Holly was saying about like what Pandora has become, like the I don't know, what did you guys say, like the fighting feminine or something?
The weaponized.
Yeah, the weaponized feminine, because I feel like that is the archetype I've seen the mothers in my life take on, and I feel like it's easy to go there. and it hit me this week. And I saw Lalita during the week. It hit me so strongly. And I wrote in the group, like, how man wants to please women. And if like woman is like never pleased, it like creates this vicious cycle. And I stopped at one point in this week and made sure he knew like how freaking happy he makes me, even though I have all these insecurities and like we have our wounds that we're working on together. And he burst into tears. Like it was like a release for him. And it was so important. And I was like, how many, like if my mother said that to my father, instead of like nitpicking everything and like putting all of her fears onto him, like it was actually his fault, you know, like, so I really relate to all these archetypes that are floating around on our charts.
Well, I think too, we are afraid of our own power. To some extent, we're still stepping, as women, as empowered women, are still stepping into it. How brightly can we really shine? How do we control this and control our own feelings and not lash out? And how do we really support man to do his own healing work and really fully embody that container of safety so that he can really process some of the trauma of the centuries?
Yeah. So when your man has some very hard transits, and I shared in the group today about Claude's transits, which he also shared about, of Uranus going over a stellium of planets in Aries these last few years. And Claude is very fully disclosed. He was totally unemployed and had complete mental breakdown for 5 years because the words in his head were that he had failed completely, that he needed to be provider, he had failed in every way. And then when we were talking, we took a walk and talked about this today, because now Chiron is going over all of those planets for Claude. So he's getting wham, 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 wham. And I told you in the last group that in 2005, the star team that talks in my head at that time, when I was just hearing the voices rather than claircognizant, basically said, if you can do it with this man, if you can do this with this man and bring love back between man and woman, this is what's necessary for a dimensional shift. They actually put it like that. Like, you have to get with this man and heal this rift between man and woman. So the how to do it, Holly, is really finding out what the messages are, the archetypal stories that we have in our head, that man is the paycheck, or whatever it is that is in the mind. Because I also work with men who really can't possibly lose their job because they still have their father's voice in their head. And I feel like at this point, we're at this energetic trauma release where we have to make those voices conscious. And that's what I do with my clients, is I say, okay, this is what I see in your chart. Tell me what the voices are in your head that cause you this complete mental breakdown. Because my clients are at this point, some of them unable to sleep at night, unable to function, unable to eat, because that Saturn-Pluto conjunction is hitting them really hard. And the energetic trauma release that some of us in this group do is simply talking through that, seeing where it is in the body. And I know Laura and I have worked together. See where it is in the body. Take it energetically out of the body, but first acknowledge it completely know what it is, and not force it out of the body, but honor it, integrate it, release it. And then, you know, I can listen to all of you, how this is going for you, and what are the tools that we give to people right now to release these programs in our head, because it's true. The paycheck is one of those almighty, you know, like, let's make sure humanity is always under the weight of paycheck. Okay, now I'll hear from whoever wants to talk about that.
Yeah, I want to go back to Lindsay there for a second. Totally agree on the programs that masculine has. You know, I think there's a great challenge. Men are sitting on this precipice. A lot of men are sitting with all that grief, feeling like they're not enough, or they're a failure, or feeling like the feminine will never be pleased, right? And so you see these men's groups, the men going their own way, and these red pillars, and these guys that are denigrating and walking away from the feminine as a partner, walking away from the feminine as something to be danced with, something to be related to, and instead putting them down, you know, walking away, or being totally standoffish or controlling or manipulative. And I think that's a lot of the programming to be conscious of and to look out for, and to notice. The war is over love. The war is over dividing love and dividing up and causing doubt or causing that confusion. You know, men have a lot of programming that they're not enough to be supported by the feminine, and to know that the feminine too has those fears or has those things that need to be communicated, but it's not the masculine's job to fix them necessarily. It's to be witnessed, empathized, and held. And I think there's some great conscious work going on that's up-leveling relationships.
Wow, Grant, it's really such a profound blessing to have a man in the group. I want to just thank you for being that one beautiful masculine voice, so clear and so heartfelt. And I want to pull that thread forward. Do the women hear that man doesn't feel like he can really ever please her? I mean, there was so much that Grant just said right now that I'm feeling it more than I can say it. I was feeling it.
Yeah, we were stuck in that for a while.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to him, do you remember how happy I was when I moved in? Do you remember? I would have to like tell him, I'm happy. I'm so happy. And it took you a while to believe that, or to receive it, or to witness it. It was almost like, if I really was happy, then this whole paradigm would shift. I don't know.
An inability to receive, a requirement of a man to project a reality that may or may not always be true. You know, I think that's part of the great dance between the masculine and feminine, is the feminine holding up the mirror to say, look at what you're seeing that isn't true. Look at what you're projecting into the world that's false. And it's actually in you. Go fix it.
Yeah.
That's been a fun one.
I've had to be like a loving Polly. Like, I'll break all those projections and I still love you. And I think to stand and to like, I think too, the challenge is to face those projections and, it's like I have all the scripts for my wounded little girl to go off in my head and go, okay, I hear you and I hear you. And it's like, oh my gosh, there's been so much programming so that we can't even hear each other. I mean, just the two of us trying to like really like, do we really love each other? Wait, really? Wow, how hard is that? I don't know.
It's helpful to think about those things that get in the way as being intrusions or infiltrations or projections coming against us or coming against love, versus team masculine versus team feminine. we're always right, you're always wrong, vice versa. You know, that's too partisan. That's too broken.
Well, yeah, but it's like the war of the sexes has been so orchestrated.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, like going through that feminism phase, like in college, I shaved off my head and I dated women and I was like done. I was like, and like that was an important healing phase for me to go through in my own empowerment. But I couldn't stay there. I had to de-armor my own heart, or I was going to continue to be a weaponized woman.
Mm.
And the woman herself is created to be receptive and open. And Grant helped me see how, gosh, I was scared to be open in my heart. And I would get to a place of sheer panic when he would love me. And I was like, oh, shit.
It's so vulnerable.
It is.
Really, really loved.
Yeah.
Like I feel like my little girl, like going nuts. Like she's so scared.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so good to hear you guys talk though. And I think we're all like, whether we're in relationships or not, like I think we're all having like similar thoughts about things, you know? It's interesting.
It is.
I think that was beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that, because it reminds me of the first time that I really had to break down that wall, that feeling, that heart space, was when my husband said to me, "You're so difficult to love." And it just hit me so hard and so in my face. Every part of me wanted to argue with him, and every part of me wanted to like tell him he was wrong. I am so easy to love. What are you talking about? Like, I'm all these things, but I just knew he was right. And the feeling hit me so hard. And then all of this ancestral and programming and family, all this stuff just started rushing forward, and it just put me into a puddle of just having to acknowledge what that means, and even to this day, even though that's, we've come a long way since that point, it was many years ago, there's still moments where we joke and he'll just look at me and go, "Oh, you're becoming hard to love again." like it's a reminder. It's like that sentence that goes, "Oh yeah," because basically we're all just trying to get our needs met. And it's like the way in which that navigates, and especially when you have a partner, I always think that partner in this situation where you're really consciously aware and you're in this process of evolution for us and humanity, it's an intensive. I mean, you're in it every day. There is no break from it. You're kind of like reminded, and you have those reflections every single moment of every single day. You don't really get to escape them. And, there's so many people that, they come and go in relationships, and that's not necessarily their work. They may be single through a big part of this, sort of journey that they're on. But some of us chose to heal that separation and heal the thing that's going on between man and woman. And there are just days that it is super hard. And then there are days that it just flows so effortlessly and beautiful. And you just feel like you're heard. And, my little girl and his little boy are playing really well together, and everything is like, it's just happy. Mm-hmm. But I have found that the thing that, he needs from me is really at times, for me to see him and grant him the permission, and that permission to not have to take that job, to not have to do that work. And when I say it out loud, like, if you don't match up to that particular client, we don't have to take the paycheck. And when I started introducing that a couple of years ago, just to try to align ourselves with who our clients were and who we wanted to, be in our lives, who was going to affect us from the outside, and that we basically now have this situation where we get to say with our own intuition how we feel about the clients before taking them on, and that we have to respect the other's intuition about it so that we can formulate how we're going to, navigate, because we work with a lot of couples and we work with a lot of people out in the world, sometimes it's families and it just depends. But giving that permission to not have to make the dollar, even when it looks like a lot of money, and being able to say no to it really gave him the confidence to not have to, you know, show up and make that money every single time and make that paycheck and bring that home. And now he gets to make some choices about that. And it's like, I watch him be very empowered by that. So it's like, now he's in it and he's happy to do the work. And it's not so much, you know, sort of the grind of having to earn that. And that was the turnaround of like how I could show up and acknowledge in him, you know, his own happiness, as opposed to him always focusing on whether or not I was happy.
Right. It's almost like we're having to help man get out of the "you don't have to die for me" model.
Exactly.
Like, wow, I love you, but I'm not asking you to die for me.
You don't suffer for me either. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a suppression of self that men are really coming to terms with, I think. The permission to express self.
Yeah.
That really resonated with me as talking about that giving permission concept. Absolutely.
And not that he needed my permission necessarily but I think that indirectly it was there because, you know, it's so much related to wanting to make me happy, wanting to provide, wanting to, you know, provide a life that, you know, he thinks, you know, I deserve. You know, that was all part of it. And just me turning around and saying, you know, no, we'll deal with less. You know, it's okay. Like, I would rather you be happy because, you know, and turning the tables, you know how much you want me to be happy? Well, I want the same for you. You know, right. I want you to matter in this moment just as much as I matter. And, you know, it was uncomfortable the first few times. We kind of botched up a little bit, you know, we made some, you know, but now we can really come to it and say, okay, this works or this doesn't work. And we're neither one of us are landing in the middle of it, upset about, you know, something that we've taken on that doesn't really match our needs.
Beautiful. Yeah. That's really encouraging.
It's funny. I kind of I've been thinking a lot because it's been coming up with all of you about the whole like man being separate to make money thing. And I mentioned this in the last video, but my partner got accepted into grad school and he's making the decision whether he's going to move 2 hours away and do this 1.5 year grad program. And if we're going to continue to do this long distance and make it work. And I have such deep love for him, and I know his chart really well, and he has his 10th house is in Virgo and his moon's in Capricorn, and like he really, like, he needs to have social monetary security, and he needs to like be able to afford a house, and he really does want like tradition and like wants to take care of, you know, like I'm very I support myself and I always have, but so it's funny, like, because it's a little different, and I'm trying to be like, I love him so much that I want him to be happy, and like, so I'm trying to like just step out of it and not ask him to stay. So I'm in a little different situation, but it's interesting because it's all the same theme, right? Like, it's what man does for money. And I wonder if we lived in a different world, if like he wouldn't be just as happy, like growing food on our land and like working really hard outside. So it's interesting with Uranus and Taurus, I think, like what's going to happen. And, you know, Pluto and Saturn breaking up the structures of the patriarchy. Like, are there other ways to support ourselves? Anyway.
Yeah.
Okay, anyone else want to speak before I throw some more things out there?
Hi, I'm Shannon, and I've been just quietly listening and having lots of technical Mercury retrograde problems, so that's been challenging. My husband is basically without a job right now, and that is definitely activating a huge wound for both of us. And his Chiron is at 2 degrees of Aries, so he's just about, you know, right in the eyeballs deep in it. And it's been really challenging the last few days. Kind of losing my sense of all my tools to use and activating old programs that I know come from my lineages of, well, if the marriage isn't working, then, get the divorce and start over, that kind of thing. And yeah, it's affecting our family in a huge way. And I don't even know that I have like the proper words to articulate it all, but it is really helpful to be listening and knowing that, that it is bigger than us. It's not just us having this little problem. But it is, I do feel scared a lot. So.
Yeah, Shannon. So, yeah, you can hear, there are a lot of people who are coming to me right now making these big decisions like Shannon is. And the video that I did called Astrology for a Public Figure gives two different examples of when Saturn and Pluto were together before. And it can feel like the structures are changing. I'm not going to survive this. It can be really that heavy. And in this group, we have a lot of tools. We can objectively look at it. We can say, this is not going to last forever. We have a Chiron return, whatever it is. But at the same time, I want everyone to notice something that is so precious. And I'm going to bring us back to Jessica's book again, because Jessica's book is really important to me.
Aww.
But what we're doing, if you can objectively see like the really big picture in the last 2 minutes that we have for this conference, is that we're finishing an iron age of like the ultimate fall. And so there's something really precious about kind of how hard it is right now. There's something really profound about the experiment that I'm witnessing right now also. So if you're having the heaviest time of your life, I want you to know that you are profoundly experiencing this cycle of time called the fall. And in the eyes of a galactic, every bit of it is precious to me. The hardship is precious. The distance between man and woman is precious. And from that perspective, I can say, wow, how beautiful, because it could be over in a moment, and we are part of the pleroma again. So I'll close with that. We have less than a minute. Anyone want to say anything?
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, blessings to everyone. So much love. We'll meet again soon.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.